The bank robbery was supposed to be quick and clean in and out in 3 minutes. But when the armed men burst through the doors of First National, they didn't know that Maya Rodriguez, the quiet barista from the coffee shop next door, was watching from her window. And they didn't know she had spent 12 years as a SWAT team leader. Welcome to Daily Story. Before we begin this incredible tale of tactical expertise hidden in plain sight, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button to join our community. Corner Café occupied a narrow storefront on Maple Street in downtown Riverside, squeezed between Hartman's Insurance Agency and First National Bank. It was the kind of small-town coffee shop that survived on regulars, lawyers grabbing morning fuel before court, bank employees on their lunch breaks, and retirees who made their daily caffeine ritual into a social event. Maya Rodriguez had been running the cafe for 2 years, and in that time, she had become as much a fixture of downtown Riverside as the old courthouse clock. At 38, she had the easy smile and patient demeanor that made customers feel like they were visiting a friend rather than just buying a cup of coffee. She knew everyone's order by heart. Detective Morrison liked his coffee black with 1 sugar, Mrs. Patterson from the bank always ordered a vanilla latte with extra foam, and old Mr. Henley wanted decaf but never remembered to specify. So Maya automatically made it decaf every time to avoid his afternoon jitters. What her customers didn't know was that Maya's patient attention to detail came from 12 years of training, where forgotten detail could mean the difference between life and death. Her ability to remember complex orders was the same skill that had once allowed her to memorize building blueprints, suspect descriptions, and tactical entry points with perfect accuracy. Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, Metro Police SWAT Team Alpha, had been one of the youngest team leaders in the department's history. For 12 years, she had led high-risk operations, hostage rescues, drug raids, armed suspect apprehensions, and counter-terrorism missions that never made the local news. She had been the calm voice in the chaos, the tactical mind that could see 3 moves ahead, the leader that her team trusted to bring them home alive. The transition to civilian life hadn't been her choice. A tactical entry gone wrong had left her with a damaged right knee and a medical retirement that ended her career at 36. The department offered her a desk job, but after spending over a decade in tactical operations, the thought of pushing paperwork felt like suffocation. Opening a coffee shop had been her therapist's suggestion, something quiet, routine, and far removed from the adrenaline-fueled world of law enforcement. Maya had used her pension and savings to lease the small space on Maple Street, thinking that serving lattes and baking muffins would help her find a new kind of peace. For the most part, it had worked. The cafe gave her a reason to get up in the morning, a way to connect with people without the constant threat assessment that had defined her police work. She had learned to sleep without checking the locks 3 times, to walk through crowds without cataloging every exit, to have conversations that didn't involve tactical planning or threat evaluation. But some habits were harder to break than others. She still kept a Louisville Slugger behind the counter, still positioned herself where she could see both the front door and the back exit, and still found herself automatically assessing every customer who walked through the door, not for threats, necessarily, but because situational awareness had become as automatic as breathing. The morning of October 23rd started like any other. Maya arrived at 6 a.m. to prep the cafe for the 7 a.m. opening, starting the first pot of coffee and arranging fresh pastries in the display case. By 8 a.m., she was in the familiar rhythm of morning rush, steaming milk, grinding beans, and maintaining the easy conversations that made her customers feel welcome. Detective Morrison stopped by at 8:15, as he had every weekday for the past 2 years. Maya had recognized him as law enforcement within minutes of their first meeting. It was in the way he positioned himself at the counter, the way his eyes automatically scanned the room, the way he stood with his weight slightly forward, ready to move. They had never discussed her background, but she suspected he sensed something familiar in her as well. The usual, Ray? Maya asked, already reaching for his cup. You know it. Busy morning already. 3 fender benders and a domestic disturbance call before 8 a.m. Coffee's the only thing keeping me vertical. Maya poured his black coffee and added 1 sugar, noting the fatigue in his voice. Police work was hard on everyone, but small-town cops like Ray often handled everything from traffic stops to violent crimes with minimal backup. She respected the dedication it took to do that job well. The morning crowd thinned out around 10 a.m., leaving Maya with a few regulars and the steady stream of bank employees who preferred her coffee to the break room machine next door. She was restocking the pastry case when she heard Mrs. Patterson's voice rise in distress from the direction of the bank. Maya looked up from the display case and glanced toward the large front window that gave her a clear view of First National's entrance. What she saw made every instinct from her 12 years in SWAT suddenly slam into high alert. 4 men in dark clothing, were walking toward the bank entrance with a purposeful, coordinated movement that screamed tactical training. They moved in a diamond formation, with the lead man slightly ahead and the others positioned to cover different angles. Their body language was aggressive, focused, and professional in a way that told Maya this wasn't amateur hour. She watched as the lead man checked his watch, said something to the others, and then they all moved simultaneously toward the bank's front doors. Maya caught a glimpse of weapons being drawn as they entered the building. For a split second, Maya Rodriguez, the barista, stood frozen, coffee pot in hand, watching a situation unfold that had nothing to do with her quiet civilian life. Then Sergeant Rodriguez took over, and the coffee pot was carefully set down as she moved into tactical assessment mode. 4 suspects, coordinated entry, and a professional movement pattern. Armed robbery in progress. Bank layout, single entrance, limited exit options for hostages, multiple sight lines from her position in the cafe. Response time for local law enforcement, minimum 8 minutes, given current traffic patterns and the fact that Ray had just left to handle calls on the other side of town. Maya moved to her phone and dialed 911, her voice calm and professional. This is Maya Rodriguez at Corner Café, 247 Maple Street. I have eyes on an armed robbery in progress at First National Bank. 4 suspects appears to be coordinated entry. Weapons are visible. No shots fired yet, but I can see approximately 12 civilians inside. We are dispatching units immediately. Please stay on the line and keep yourself safe. Maya stayed on the line, but she also moved to the back room where she kept supplies, and where she had hidden something she'd hoped never to need again. Behind boxes of coffee filters and napkins was a locked metal case that contained her service weapon, a Glock 19 that she had maintained in perfect condition despite her retirement. She had told herself she kept it out of habit, that it was just another piece of equipment from her old life that she couldn't quite let go of. But as she loaded the magazine and checked the action, she realized she had been unconsciously preparing for a moment exactly like this one. Through her front window, Maya could see the situation inside the bank escalating. The robbers had moved the customers and employees to the center of the lobby, keeping them grouped while they worked on what appeared to be the main vault. Their positioning was professional. 1 man on the hostages, 1 working the vault, 2 covering exits and sight lines. Maya's tactical mind automatically began running through options. Local police response would be delayed, and when they did arrive, they would need time to assess the situation, establish perimeters, and coordinate a response. In a hostage situation, time worked in favor of the criminals, allowing them to either complete their objective and escape or dig in for a prolonged siege. But Maya had advantages the responding officers wouldn't have. She had been watching the suspects from the beginning, she knew the exact layout of both buildings, and she had a position that provided tactical advantage without the suspects' knowledge. She made a decision that would have been impossible to explain to her therapist or to the customers who knew her only as the friendly barista who made perfect lattes. Maya locked the cafe's front door and flipped the sign to closed, then moved to the back exit that opened into the alley behind Maple Street. Her knowledge of the area included details that most people never noticed: the fire escape that provided roof access, the sight lines between buildings, and the fact that the bank's rear exit was visible from the roof of the insurance office. Moving with the careful precision that had once made her one of the department's most effective tactical operators, Maya used the fire escape to gain elevation and position herself where she could observe the bank's rear exit while maintaining communication with dispatch. This is Maya Rodriguez, still on scene at the bank robbery. I have a tactical observation position and can provide real-time intelligence to responding units. We need you to maintain a safe distance and wait for our officers. Dispatch. This is former Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, Metro SWAT. Badge number 2847. I have tactical training and current observation of the situation. Patch me through to the incident commander. There was a brief pause before a familiar voice came on the radio. Rodriguez? This is Captain Stevens. I thought you were running a coffee shop now. I am, Captain. But right now I'm the only trained tactical officer with eyes on this situation. 4 suspects, professional coordination, holding approximately 12 hostages in the main lobby. They appear to be working on the vault, suggesting they plan to complete the robbery rather than use the hostages as negotiating leverage. What's your assessment? Maya watched as one of the robbers checked his watch again and said something to the others. Their body language suggested they were operating on a timeline, which meant they would either finish quickly or the situation would escalate. They're time pressured, which means they'll either wrap up in the next 5 minutes or start making mistakes. If local units arrive before they're finished, we'll have a hostage situation. If they finish first, they'll use the hostages as human shields during their exit. Options. Maya studied the tactical situation, her mind automatically running through scenarios she had handled dozens of times before. The difference was that this time, she was one person instead of a coordinated team, and the stakes included people she knew personally. Mrs. Patterson was in that lobby, along with Jenny from the bank's loan department, who always ordered an extra shot of espresso, and Tom the security guard, who brought her cookies his wife baked. Captain, I can create a disruption that forces them to react rather than complete their timeline. It won't be clean, but it'll give responding units the advantage of catching them in motion instead of entrenched with hostages. Rodriguez, you're retired. You're not equipped for this. Maya looked down at her service weapon, then at the tactical situation playing out below her. She wasn't equipped for this. She was one person with a sidearm facing 4 armed suspects. But she was also the only person in a position to act before the situation became exponentially more dangerous. Captain, with respect, I'm the most equipped person available. And those people down there don't have 8 minutes to wait for the cavalry. She ended the radio communication and moved to a position that provided a clear sight line to the bank's rear exit. Maya's plan was simple in concept but required precise timing. Create enough disruption to break the robbers' coordination and force them to react, then use their confusion to provide tactical advantage to the responding officers. From her elevated position, she could see that 2 of the robbers were still focused on the vault while 1 maintained overwatch on the hostages and the 4th monitored the front entrance. Classic tactical positioning, but it also created predictable patterns of attention and response. Maya used her phone to call the bank's main number, knowing the ringing would create additional stress and break the robbers' focus. First National Bank, came a terrified voice, Jenny from the loan department. Jenny, this is Maya from the cafe. Are you all right? Maya? Oh God, they have guns. There. The phone was yanked away, and a male voice came on the line. Who is this? This is Maya Rodriguez. I'm in the building next door, and I can see everything you're doing. You need to let those people go. There was a pause, then rapid conversation among the robbers. Maya watched as they moved to the windows, trying to locate her position. Their coordination began to break down as they shifted from offensive operations to defensive positioning. That was when Maya made her move. She positioned herself at the edge of the roof and fired 2 shots into the air, the sound echoing off the buildings and creating the acoustic confusion that suggested multiple shooters from multiple directions. The robbers immediately assumed they were under attack by responding police units and shifted into defensive positions, but Maya wasn't finished. She moved quickly to a different position and fired again, this time at the lock on the bank's rear exit, blowing it open and creating a new exit point that the robbers hadn't planned for. The tactical situation inside the bank dissolved into chaos as the robbers tried to respond to what they perceived as a coordinated police assault from multiple directions. Their professional coordination broke down as they attempted to cover more angles than they had personnel to handle. That was when the first police units arrived. Detective Morrison and 2 patrol officers came around the corner at exactly the moment Maya's disruption had forced the robbers to abandon their positions and attempt an emergency exit through the rear door she had just opened. The confrontation was brief. Caught between Maya's elevated position and the arriving officers, with their timeline destroyed and their coordination broken, 3 of the 4 robbers surrendered immediately. The 4th attempted to run and was tackled by Detective Morrison in the alley behind the bank. 12 hostages walked out of First National Bank unharmed. The robbers were arrested without a single shot being fired at another human being. The total time from the beginning of the robbery to its resolution was 11 minutes. Maya climbed down from the roof, secured her weapon, and walked back to her cafe, where she unlocked the front door and resumed normal operations as if nothing had happened. Detective Morrison found her there 20 minutes later, making lattes for the crowd of customers who had gathered to discuss the excitement next door. Maya, he said quietly, we need to talk. She looked up from the espresso machine, her hands steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her system. The usual, Ray. He stared at her for a long moment, then smiled. You know what? Yeah. The usual. But we are talking after I finish this coffee. Word of the incident spread quickly through Riverside. The official police report credited excellent coordination between law enforcement units and an alert citizen, who provided crucial tactical intelligence. Maya's name wasn't mentioned in any of the news coverage, but Detective Morrison knew. Captain Stevens knew. And gradually, others in the law enforcement community began to understand that the quiet woman making their morning coffee was someone they should know better. 2 weeks after the bank robbery, Captain Stevens visited Corner Café. Maya, we've been talking. The department has a consulting position available, focusing on tactical training for new SWAT recruits, crisis management planning, and similar tasks. Part-time, fits around your cafe schedule. Interested? Maya considered the offer while she prepared his coffee. Black, 2 sugars, she noted automatically. For 2 years, she had tried to convince herself that she could be satisfied with the simple pleasures of civilian life. But the truth was that the 11 minutes during the bank robbery had felt more like home than anything she'd experienced since her retirement. What kind of scenarios would I be training them for? She asked. Real-world situations. The kind of thing that happens when trained tactical officers aren't immediately available, when citizens have to make split-second decisions about whether to get involved or wait for backup. Maya smiled as she handed him his coffee. I think I'd like that. 6 months later, Corner Café was still serving the best coffee in downtown Riverside. But now, twice a week, Maya Rodriguez also worked with police departments across 3 counties, training officers in tactical decision-making, crisis management, and the kind of situational awareness that can mean the difference between life and death. She had found a way to be both the friendly barista who remembered everyone's order and the tactical expert who could read a room for threats in seconds. Her customers still saw her as Maya, who made perfect lattes, but now they also knew she was someone who would stand between them and danger without hesitation. The Louisville slugger was still behind the counter, but Maya no longer felt like she was hiding from her past. She had integrated her 2 worlds into something that felt authentic and purposeful. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one you never suspect. Sometimes the person serving your coffee is the same person who spent 12 years developing the skills to protect innocent people from those who would harm them. Maya Rodriguez had learned that retirement doesn't mean the end of service. It just means finding new ways to use the skills you've developed to make the world a little bit safer. So now I ask you, have you ever known someone in a service job who seemed to have depths you never expected? Someone whose quiet competence suggested a background in something more demanding than their current role? Share their story in the comments below. Tell us about the hidden protectors in your life, the ones who serve others in ways both big and small. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you that heroes often work in the most ordinary places, hit that subscribe button and join the Daily Story community. We are here to honor the quiet professionals, the hidden guardians, the people who choose service over recognition every single day. Thank you for watching, and remember, the next time someone serves you with exceptional care and attention to detail, look a little closer. You might be meeting someone who has dedicated their life to protecting others, one perfect latte at a time.